through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
Bada bing, bada boom. We are here for game 2. Pre-season match reaction. Guys, you already know the deal. Make sure you smash that like. Make sure you subscribe to the damn channel if you haven't already. We are on the road to 700 people. Big up everybody who has obviously already subscribed to the channel. Now, obviously, Liverpool, second game of pre-season against Fürth. Another German team. Obviously, I think now we finished that German side of the tour. We are then going to move on to Singapore after this to face a couple of other teams. I'm sure we have Bayern Munich in there, but I don't know if that's obviously in Singapore, if that's when we come back, but we do have them coming up soon. But in regards to today's game, Liverpool 4-4, interesting game, very, very interesting game. I know a lot of people, are not happy in regards to some of the things that they saw, I'm being honest, it's a crazy game. It obviously was a crazy game in a general sense. Let's just unpack it. I'm thinking about it now, but let's just unpack it. So obviously, first half, played a very, very strong team against them. I think maybe more minutes in the bag for certain players. Bozalai was obviously injured, so he couldn't play in this game. But we played a lot of these first teamers, and if I'm being honest with you, outside of Bradley, most of that team, if not all of it, would probably be considered players who are going to start in that first game against Chelsea, if I'm being 100% honest, obviously depending on the forward line and things like that. But, I think it would all just kind of depend on, who he sees fit in regards to play and, all those kind of things. But when we're looking at it anyway, if I'm looking at it, looking at that first half team, that he did play, I mean, you got Ali in goal, Bradley, Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson, Trent obviously in that 6th position with McAllister, Gakpo in that 8 kind of 10-ish position. Obviously, we'll check the average positions and stuff like that to see kind of where he was floating around. And then obviously Doak, Diaz, and Diogo Jota. So a very, very strong team, if I'm being honest, from Jurgen Klopp, which kind of, I wouldn't say surprised me, but I was like, okay, cool. You know what? If we're going to see this team, then I expect to see a decent performance. I expect to see some decent patterns of play. Remember, the majority of this team outside of Ben Doak and Bradley, they've all played together. They all know how to kind of play the Klopp system. So I'm expecting to at least see that. But that first half, flat to the sea, if I'm being totally honest with you. Obviously, look, having Trent in that 6th position, first and foremost, if we just look at that, Trent in that position, the problem with having Trent in that 6th position for me is that you just waste him there, man. I just feel like he ain't doing nothing in that position. You don't get to utilize his skill set. You don't get to utilize what he's really, really good at, in that position. So, it just, for me, just isn't really, it's one of them ones. Obviously, the job that you're asking him to do is obviously potentially just keep the ball and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. Fair enough, he can do that. But when the team starts pressing aggressively, which is what Fürth did, which is what Karlsruhe didn't do, when the team start pressing aggressively from the off, it makes it very difficult for Trent, being in that position, ends up losing the ball a fair few. I think he lost the ball about 6 times, in that game in itself. Not just through passing, but through passing, but trying to get himself out of certain situations, he just couldn't really do. And you can see with the positions that he's obviously taking up in this game, again, not threatening positions, not utilizing what he's good at. Why you want him in the team is for these kind of things where he can penetrate the opposition with his passing and long balls and stuff like that. And I just didn't really feel that. I know we got the assist for Diaz, which again, and I even said it, I said watch him get an assist, and everyone would just be like, yeah, but he got an assist, so blah blah blah. So stats wise, yes, fantastic. If we're going to look at it, from base value, but ultimately as an overall game, not really that impressed, if I'm being totally honest with you. And then obviously when we look here at the average positioning, now this is where I always get onto everybody, because the people always get onto me for saying, not really acknowledging the fact that Klopp may use different tactics in certain games and this, that, and the other. But if you look at the heat map from, not even the heat map, but also the average position of our games, mostly from last season, this was kind of it. Do you know? In fact, this was mostly it. maybe if you want to change Trent in that number 66 there, put Fabinho in that position, number 84, swap that with Trent. And that's kind of exactly what we were like last season. Robbo pushed up, the two centre backs, either the left winger or the right winger, usually Salah obviously on that side, pushed up far. The striker dropped it. It's 4-3-3 right there. You could see, and that was most of our, if not 95% of our, the average positions that you would have seen from last season. Even though we supposedly change formations in games and all this kind of thing, might have done that, but the makeup of the team is going to stay the same. Why? Because the manager requires it. The manager needs it. That is the best way for the manager to implement what he is good at, and it's the only thing that he is obviously inevitably good at. So that's what we're going to see. But obviously, we've moved to this kind of inverted thing where you have got 84 Bradley playing in that inverted, kind of role. As I mentioned before, with Trent in that kind of positioning, wasn't really too happy with it. Gakpo playing in that kind of 8 position. What's kind of going on there? Is that position that Klopp really wants to play him in? He's played him in there a couple of times actually. In other games. Is that a position that he thinks he can play in? Moving forward, I'm not really convinced. I mean, it's just pre-season, but I wouldn't have been convinced after today's performance. But I've seen it done previously, and I'm still not convinced. That that's a position that we should be putting. Gakpo in. He works best as the striker with Diogo Jota on the left-hand side. So very very weird things. That we're seeing. And talking about Bradley anyway. This is Bradley in his first game. You can see him, it's the same thing for me. I felt like he was quite ineffective in that first game, but his positioning in the game was quite interesting to see, very much like Trent and stuff like that. And then this is obviously him in today's game, again, a little bit deeper, but again, it goes to show when the other team starts pressing and they're a lot more aggressive and a lot more tenacity, it's going to make it difficult for you. So I'm a little bit unsure with Bradley in a general sense. He's played with the big boys now a couple of times now. I don't want to say he sticks out like a sore thumb, but it's very noticeable that he is on the pitch, and it's not for good reasons, if I'm being totally honest with you. But he is still learning. I think he's more of a touchline fullback, someone who likes to bomb up and down. That's what he was doing, for Bolton mostly last season. To then try and make that step up, playing in that kind of inverted position, don't really think that that's the that's the best position for him. Another player. This is McAllister from his first game when he came on in that second half, very, very good, in those attacking areas and that attacking third, pockets of spaces, finding passes to the strikers, Diogo Jota at the time, Gakpo linking up really, really well there. And then, you go to this game where he was a bit deeper. And I just felt like, again, he was just, is it the roles that are being asked of these players? I don't know. I really don't know, man. I just think that if these are the roles that are being asked of these players, are we getting the best out of them? Are we getting the best out of Trent in that position? Probably not. Are you going to get the best out of McAllister in that position? Probably not. You're going to get the best out of these players when you get them on the ball in dangerous positions. You're going to need other players to start filling in these roles, and you're going to have to change the way that you play. That's going to be my main thing. But the main thing that I took away from that first half, anyway, with that team that we had out. Diaz, by the way, very good goal. Played better than he did in that first game. Still got a bit of work to do, if I'm being totally honest with you. Roms mentioned it. We spoke on the Jerry James show. Make sure you guys check that out. Talk about like how Jota and Diaz are when it comes to the pressing side of things. Both players can press. Jota's a lot more intelligent with his press, whereas Diaz isn't. You can see that. That's got nothing to do with your fitness or anything like that. That's just general makeup of a player. That's what I see with Diaz. I've always seen it with a Diaz, is that intelligence-wise, not really there in terms of the IQ and how to do certain things. That's something he's going to need to work on. But he was getting, decent touches in that attacking third. He linked up okay with, again, Jota and Gakpo. If it wasn't for them, it would have been curtains in an attacking sense in that first half, because the combination play was pretty decent, between those three at times. But, having Gakpo in that position, I just didn't think it worked. We had a lot of possession, obviously, in that first half, which you can say was always going to be the kind of thing, with us against a team, like Fürth. We're going to have that level of possession. We're going to have that kind of strength regardless. But is it effective? Is always my kind of thing. Is that effective for, what we're actually, trying to, realistically do? And even when I look at the possession, we have 53%, they have 47. So it wasn't even too much, but we had a lot more shots at goal. We were only 3 on target at the time. So, we were dominating the play, in that kind of sense. But then things kind of changed, in that second half, when he made, some of the changes and things like that. And again, when we're looking at some of the changes, being made in that second half, he's gone with Adrian in goal. Why? I have absolutely no idea. Hadran in goal, Gomez, Matip, Kwanzaa, Simicas, McConnell, Elliott, and Jones, with Salah, Kumas, and Nunez, with Frauendorf, Scanlon, and Pitaluga coming on in the 75th minute. Now, look, a lot of people are going to talk, about the whole with, the back line, the defense, because we talk a lot about midfield, and that's something that people always bring up. But for me, I keep saying it when it comes to the defense. That's an area that I'm very, very concerned about. Do you know what I mean? Both in our first team and in the depth behind that. Outside of Kwanzaa, who didn't have that great of a game, but he played okay. On that kind of left hand side, he was quite. He was just decent. I know the rating gives him a low rating, and I kind of agree with it. I don't think he did anything that he looked okay in moments, but as an overall, because he was a part of that defense, with Matip and Gomez, who were absolutely poor, man. I was hoping we'd see a bit more from Matip at least. Gomez, I kind of expect these kind of performances, so I don't really want to get too much into him. But Matip, I thought maybe we'd get better performances, in these kind of games. Again, it's only preseason, as people will say, so it is what it is type of thing. But I do expect a little bit more from those senior players, especially Matip as well, being the most senior player in terms of age and experience, in that back line. But I felt like Kwanzaa had a better game than him, and he's showing that, maybe he can play, in this kind of team. It'll be very interesting to see him as maybe the left-sided centre back, or push Virgil out to the left-sided centre back position, Kwanzaa in the middle with Konate out on the right. Again, Konate is another player that, when I look at Konate, sometimes I am a little bit like, you know what I mean? 4 ground duels, only won 1 of them, lost position 5 times, 3 fouls. Konate I keep saying it about Konate, man. Like we will do better if we have a better right-sided centre back and a better left-sided centre back. Not because Konate is not a good defender. It's because I think his best positioning is in Virgil's position, which is in the centre. That is where you're going to get the best out of him, like him in general. Now, obviously, him in general to then what the tactics then require. I keep talking about this, and I've spoken about this. If you guys go back through all matches that I've done post-match reactions to, when I speak about players I'd like to sign and all these kind of various different things, that's one of them. My main theme is always talking about Konate, not because I don't think he's that good. It's just when you need, in those wide positions, you need to have people who are comfortable both in and out of possession. And we don't have that. With Robbo, we don't have that. You can see, again, with these heat and with the average positioning, what is Robbo doing? Why are you here? Like, why are you in that position? I don't understand the benefit of this at all. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, I just don't see, because in transition, all that would happen is that we would get killed. Now, obviously, in that first half, they didn't have any shots or anything like that. When I'm looking here anyway, had no shots at all on goal. So people probably say, cool, we nullified them. But we didn't look that great, in my opinion, in terms of getting ourselves forward. We only had 3 shots on target. The rest were off target or they were block shots. So let's say they were off target, kind of thing. But we were just keeping possession for possession's sake, kind of thing. They just weren't able to break us down in that kind of sense. But they were getting in and around the box enough. They were getting in and around the box. Just it's the final ball. They were finding spaces, but it's the final ball. For them, it was just a lack of quality. Something I always keep saying is that the lack of quality against most teams that we come up against, that's going to be the case. We've got better quality in certain areas. So, of course, it'll show a bit more. But when you start playing against teams with a bit more quality in those certain positions, they'll find that ball then. They will get that ball across the box. I remember a moment, I think Konate was, trying to chase onto a ball. He ended up getting there kind of a bit late, but then the ball across it played into Alisson's hands. Again, a better team, they could put that ball right across, and none of our defenders will be able to get there. Yeah, they'll get on the end of those kind of things. So it is a bit of a to and fro. And then obviously looking at that second half, again, the organization and everything surrounding it was just so poor from the back line in a general sense. Again, Simicas obviously coming on. I just felt like he was just, again, not that he was the worst, because I don't think he was the worst player, but I didn't really feel like he gave a good measure or good marker to say, yeah, I should be in this kind of position or whatever the case might be. So again, left-sided centre back is such a key area. It's more key than the right-sided side, purely because I think you'll get away with potentially having Konate there for a full season, so to speak, even though he is quite injury prone. But then obviously maybe then you've got Gomez and maybe a Matic potentially could play in those positions. Whereas left side, I do think it is an area that does need to be checked out quite a lot. But I would like both, if I'm being totally honest with you, and the right back position as well. But again, that's me asking for a lot, but that's me asking to try and compete. That's what I think it will take to be able to compete. I just think at the moment that won't be done until we get this. Attacking wise, we saw in the second half, with Nunez and Salah, very good link-up play. Something that I think Klopp is seeing a lot is he's now understanding that players are starting to forge their own kind of partnership. Gakpo, Jota, partnership right there. Salah, Nunez, partnership right there. Who's the name I didn't mention? Diaz. Why? I don't think he fits into any of those, if I'm being totally honest with you. Salah does, though. Salah always fits into both regardless, because he's the only right winger that we've got. So he's always going to fit into that. But Diaz is someone that I look at and I think to myself, I don't really feel like you'll be able to, potentially fit into these kind of positions and things like that, just because of the way that you play. But you'd be a very good option off the bench, kind of thing. And when he does play with a Gakpo and a Jota, he can combine a lot better than when he plays with a Nunez. I feel like they've both become isolated in what they do. We saw with Nunez, that tactic that we used in that second half, just kick it long, and that was it. There was no real football or anything, just kick it long. Brilliant. Nunez loves to run in behind. They were playing a high line, more for them, because you've got two speed demons in Salah and Nunez. They'll cut you open. And Nunez took his goals very, very well. We have to big up Nunez for that. And he took his goals really, really well. Good setup from Salah for one of them. The first goal, I think he rounded the keeper, which was really, really good. So in terms of a performance for him, we were able to play to his tactics, no problem whatsoever. But I just felt like in that second half, I know we did have quite a young midfield, and I'm looking here, with certain players that we kind of played in that second half. Obviously, McConnell, Jones, Elliott playing in there. Yeah, it wasn't really the best of midfields, if I'm being totally honest with you. So I can give them that in that sense, but the midfield I felt like was almost a bit non-existent, when we were defending in transition. In attacking, we didn't really do much. It was just kick the ball long. As soon as you get the ball, poof, straight away. As long as Nunez is there, boom. That was the game. Nunez or Salah. Mostly Salah, and then he'd find Nunez, but it was either or kind of thing, which kind of worked in an attacking sense. I don't have a problem with Liverpool in the attacking sense. It's defensively, I really do have an issue with Liverpool. And in the first half, I know we didn't concede any shots or anything like that, but they were finding spaces anyway. Like I said, better quality, and it doesn't need to be Man City, Chelsea, or anything. It just needs to be Bournemouth, for example. No disrespect to Bournemouth, but of that kind of level, and they'll find those passes, they'll find those balls. So again, but fair enough, we didn't concede anything. It was 1-0, no problem. Whatever. We move into that second half, and then we see everything. Obviously, the team change and stuff like that. And again, there's got to be context applied to some of what I'm saying. But I saw the exact same things in the first half as I did in the second. The difference between the two was the two teams that you had out at the time one was a lot worse than the other. So of course that gets highlighted a bit more. But guess what? These are the Europa League players that you guys and people are talking about. Are we that confident in these guys? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're gonna need Salah to always play these games then, if that's the case, in these kind of situations. So yeah, I think second preseason game. So, not to go too overboard, but there were positives, and the positives for me were seeing how I now feel like I can see the combination play between Salah and Nunez, and I think Nunez needs a Salah to work off, because Salah will draw players naturally to him anyway, but also Salah is someone really good to play off, because of his kind of skill set, which then allows Nunez to play through. And if the team play to Nunez's strengths, you get him running in behind. You can see with the finishes today, he can finish at times. I don't think that's ever really been in doubt. It's just, are we confident that he can finish enough is really the question. But that is what it is. And another good thing I did see today was Ben Doak. I felt like Ben Doak was really, really good today. I felt like he had a solid game, showed the tenacity, again, intense down that right-hand side. I was shocked to see him start. I thought Salah might have started, but the fact that Ben Doak did, again, he showed good bits about him. He showed good bits. What happens with him this season, I don't know. Is a loan maybe better for him so that he can get these minutes in his legs and start to understand, men's football a bit better, because it's going to be a bit weird him going from first team to second team and back and forth. Maybe he just needs to play football consistently and consecutively to then, get that experience under his belt. At some point, he's going to need it anyway. Let's put you like that, if his development stalls at any given moment in time. But we'll wait and see with that. We'll wait and see. Obviously, Jones and Elliott coming back for the first time as well. So that was a good thing to see. Elliott playing in that kind of pockets of space on that right-hand side. Jones playing in a bit of a deeper role. So, there were little good bits to see, but there was also, the negatives to see, which is, again, defensive transition, both first and second half for me. I was not happy about that at all. Didn't like the space that we were leaving in behind. And as I said, against better quality, you'll get cut open. When we play Bayern Munich, if they decide to play a strong team, you cannot give that space to Gnabry's, the Sané's, Mane if he's still there, Choupo-Moting's even. These players will smell blood and just kill you for that. Musiala playing in pockets of space, going to be very interesting to see, how Liverpool can deal with that. But, ultimately, that's later on down the line. Obviously, second game done and dusted. So, Liverpool 4-4. Yeah, I think it's just one of those ones. For now, we just take it as it is. We move on. Hopefully, no one gets any injuries. Like I said, it was good to see Darwin Nunez score. I might berate him as much as possible, but if he scores, he scores. Do you know what I mean? So big him up, for that. And as I said, good relationship with Mo Salah. But yeah, that third game on Sunday is going to be interesting to see who he plays, how we play, and stuff like that. Is McAllister going to have the same kind of role? Is Trent going to stay in that sixth position? What does that then mean? Transfer wise, so many questions, so little answers. But that is today's, obviously, match reaction done and dusted. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the damn channel. I'm G, and we're out.